почему?
Да какое имеет значение это военное прошлое для получения гаража?
Но как же?
Je. Here it is again. This small, mystical, and quite frankly, very annoying particle in Russian, because it causes many problems among learners. However, in this video, I will explain to you nicely, slowly, and clearly everything you need to know about je, what Russians mean when they use it, and how you yourself can employ je in your speech to make it sound more authentic. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome to Culture TV. If you're new here, then on this channel you can learn Russian very authentically with myself, a native speaker, over a wide range of abilities, from beginner all the way through to advanced. In this video, we'll be thinking about je. In grammar, we call it a modal particle, and there are also modal particles in other languages, for example German or Dutch. However, the uses and meanings or emotions conveyed through modal particles don't always coincide. So in this video, I'll be showing you what it's all about in Russian. I can select 5 main uses of je, and we'll take them one by one. Firstly, again, we can use je as a modal particle to intensify something. We can also use je in certain constructions, and when we translate them into English, we get something like the same. We can use je as a conjunction for contrast. We can also find je with question words with interrogatives like what, how, who, and so on. And lastly, you can find je in set expressions or phrases or cliches, if you like. So we'll start off with the first one, and arguably this is the hardest one to get your head around. However, I promise you, if you continue watching, it will be much clearer. So, je as an intensifier. You probably will have heard already that je can be used, in this case, by Russians to intensify the meaning of something, add a bit of emphasis, strengthen something, add a bit of emotion. Yeah, that's great. It's all well and good knowing that, but it's a bit vague. It doesn't really help you yourself use je. It helps you understand it, yes, because, well, good news, if you remove je from a sentence, then you can just focus on the other words, and the factual, the physical meaning of the sentence is still retained. So basically you can ignore je in a sentence and it will mean the same thing, usually. However, you obviously want to be able to use it yourself as well. So let me show you what we do in Russian. By using je, we generally convey the idea of common knowledge or something being obvious. So when a speaker uses je in Russian, they are conveying the attitude that whatever they're saying is known by everybody else. The knowledge is shared with the people that they're talking to, or in fact with the whole world. It depends on the context. So this idea of something being obvious, evident, and known by everybody else. But I think that the key to understanding je is the following, and you won't find this anywhere else on the internet, I can almost guarantee that. Je is the exact equivalent of all the question tags that we have in English. Question tags are these little phrases that we add on to the end of a sentence to turn it into a question, such as, isn't it, don't you, weren't we, shouldn't she, and so on. It is the exact same, I promise you. So let me show you what I mean. Here we have a statement. You live in Moscow. Ты живешь в Москве. That's a fact. We can turn this fact into a question like this. Do you live in Moscow? Ты живешь в Москве? Yeah, so this time we're asking a closed question. So you can either answer yes or no. Another option is to take the first statement and just add on a question tag. You live in Moscow, don't you? Now, how would you say this in Russian? You've guessed it. Ты же живешь в Москве? Ты же живешь в Москве? And so this don't you is conveyed through je. Je is the exact same as don't you. These two sentences, these two questions rather, are absolutely identical. I can't put it any better. Like, this is exactly what je means. Can you see that in English, by adding don't you, we are conveying, as the person speaking, that it is obvious, it is knowledge that is shared by both people in the dialogue. So in our first case of the question, where we just asked, do you live in Moscow? Can you see that we weren't really sure? We were uncertain whether this person lives in Moscow or not, right? But when we say don't you, we are almost 100% sure, aren't we? And this is exactly what the function, what the role of je is. It shows that if person A is asking the question and person B is the one living in Moscow, je shows that person A knows that person B lives in Moscow. And they're just asking to confirm, right? They just want to confirm. They just want to clarify something, yes? So let's have a look at some other examples. Just remember that in closed questions, all you have to do is to replace je with the corresponding question tag in English. So have a go yourself now. Ты же поможешь мне? Ты же поможешь мне? How would we translate this into English? So let's start off by ignoring je, as we said before. We would just get Ты поможешь мне, which means, will you help me? Now, je is the exact equivalent of the question tags. So in English, this would be, you'll help me, won't you? That's it. It's as simple as that. So let's say person A is the one asking this question, person B is the one who's going to be giving the help. Person A has added on won't you, or in Russian, je, to show that they think that B has already agreed to give the help. And so it is obvious that the help will be given. That is conveyed through je, or won't you. To be honest, I don't think there's any need for me giving this explanation. You know very well in English what all these question tags mean. You know what won't you conveys. And it's exactly the same for je. Okay? Here's another one. Его же Коля зовут. Его же Коля зовут. His name is Коля, isn't it? And lastly, она же тебе уже все объяснила. Она же тебе уже все объяснила. She's explained everything to you already, hasn't she? That's it, nice and simple, hopefully. So that was je in closed questions. Russians tend to use je more often in statements, and the same rules apply. You replace je with the question tag in English. However, because it is now a statement and not a question, you remove the question mark. Sounds a bit strange. Let me show you. Here is the same sentence that we've seen. Ты же живешь в Москве? You live in Moscow, don't you? Now, if a Russian states this as a fact, so it is not a question, it would be Ты же живешь в Москве. You notice that the tone has changed as well. Ты же живешь в Москве. There we go. It's a statement. It's a fact, right? Now, we still keep the question tag. We still keep the don't you, but we remove the question mark. In other words, we turn it into a rhetorical question. It is almost like a question, but rephrased as a fact. Yeah, rephrase the question as a fact. That is all we're doing. Why is that? Well, let's think about it like this. Person A is saying, Ты же живешь в Москве, to person B. Person A is not looking for a reply from B. Previously, when we added on the question tags, we were looking for a reply, weren't we? So whenever someone says to you, aren't you, you usually reply to that, yes, I am. Whilst this time, person A is not looking for a reply. It is a rhetorical question. And they're not looking for a reply because they know that the response is going to be yes anyway. And the response is going to be yes because what they're saying is obvious common knowledge. So person B is meant to know this anyway, right? Oh, by the way, right, can you see it's also a question tag, so you can use the same analogy for that. So let me show you what I mean with some more examples. So we have a dialogue here. Ты знаешь Воробьевы горы? Нет, не знаю. Как так? Ты же в Москве живешь. Ты знаешь Воробьевы горы? Нет, не знаю. Как так? Ты же в Москве живешь. Do you know the Sparrow Hills? Воробьевы горы, which translates as Sparrow Hills, is this lovely park in the center of Moscow. The other person replies, no, I don't. And then we get, how? You live in Moscow. The better translation here would be, what? Really? But you live in Moscow, don't you? So can you see here that we have an exclamation and we're still using the question tag, don't you? You live in Moscow, don't you? But because we're not asking a question, we're rather exclaiming here, we are conveying our surprise or our shock. So, person A, do you know the Sparrow Hills? Person B, no, I don't. Person A again, but how do you not know Sparrow Hills? You live in Moscow, you ought to know. So, person B is meant to be living in Moscow, and person A is using don't you to show this common knowledge, right? Again, I don't think this needs explaining, it's all conveyed through don't you. Another example. Again, ты знаешь Воробьевы горы? Конечно, я же в Москве живу. Ты знаешь Воробьевы горы? Да, конечно, я же в Москве живу. And this actually is a much better example, I think. It probably illustrates the use of je much better. So again, we have, do you know the Sparrow Hills? This time, person B says, of course I do. I live in Moscow. And again, the better translation would be, yes, of course I do. I live in Moscow. Don't I? So again, je is being replaced with don't I. Why is person B using don't I here? Well, because Sparrow Hills is a park that every Muscovite knows and has definitely visited. And so person B is, again, showing their surprise or shock that person A is asking this question in the first place. It is obvious, it is common knowledge that they will know about Sparrow Hills because they live in Moscow. It's all conveyed through don't you. It's literally the exact same. It's just that this time, person B is not asking a question. Я же в Москве живу. That is not a question, that is a statement or an exclamation. And it's a statement or exclamation or a rhetorical question that does not need an answer. Person B is not looking for an answer from A because they know that A is meant to reply with yes anyway, because it is obvious, because it is common knowledge. That's probably the best explanation I can give for this use of je. If you're still unsure, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments. Now let's move on to the next use. Oh, and by the way, here is the Воробьевы горы. Definitely visit it if you do go to Moscow. Okay, so the other time that je can intensify is whenever it's used with the imperative. This is much rarer, I have to say, but you might come across it. Иди же, иди же. And this means something like, go on then. And you'll probably find this when someone is trying to persuade or encourage someone else. So if you imagine person A is saying иди же to person B. Person B is quite shy or reluctant and they don't want to go. By adding je, person A is adding that little bit of even support possibly, but this persuasion. Just come on, don't be shy. Nothing bad will happen to you. Just go. Go on then. And it can sometimes even mean, if used with a harsh tone, oh, come on, for goodness sake, just go, stop waiting. That kind of tone. And the other time that je can be used with imperatives is things like this. Так намного лучше, скажи же. Так намного лучше, скажи же. And it's this construction here, скажи, or скажите if you're being polite. And it's something like, it's much better like this, isn't it? Again, I've translated it as isn't it here. But when we say скажи, we're looking for agreement. That's the only use, really. It's not really a question tag, it's just we're looking for approval from the person we're talking to. Just for agreement, really. It's a bit softer than just a typical or standard question tag. But this isn't really that important. We've covered the main use. Now let's move on to the other ones. And the next one is when je means the same. So we have to understand that in Russian there isn't really a direct equivalent of the same. In English, we just have this one phrase, the same, and it's used everywhere. It's great, it's nice and easy. But we as Russians have to overcomplicate everything for some reason, and we have to use a certain construction, depending on the context, to say the same. The simple rule really is we have some kind of pronoun, and then the second component is always же. For example, этот же, такой же, такие же, if it's a plural, and it can also get affected by case. Этой же, or it could be talking about place. Там же, or even time. Тогда же, and so on and so on. The list continues. Basically, we have a pronoun, and it could be affected by gender, number, or case. Again, it could be talking about place or time or manner. And then we have je. And all of this means the same. Now, I'll probably do a separate video on this topic. As soon as it's done, I will leave a link in the description because it's just a whole separate topic to discuss in grammar. But I will give you a quick overview of the hardest, the hardest options. So, let's talk about cars. Here we have some Lada cars. Lada is a make of car in Russia. Now, the Lada factory produces many cars, doesn't it? And they will all be identical if it's the same model. They're not the exact same car, they're different cars, but they're all of the same model. Do you get what I mean? So let's say you're walking on the street and you see a Lada. You saw a Lada on the street yesterday. If you come back on the street today and you see the very same car, the exact same car that you saw yesterday, i.e. the one with the same registration number and possibly with the same driver, in Russian, you will say «Я видел эту же машину вчера». «Я видел эту же машину вчера». I saw this very same car yesterday. Whilst, if yesterday you saw a Lada, but today you see a different Lada, the same model, but not the exact same car, so of the same type, you will say «Я видел такую же машину вчера». I saw such a car yesterday, or I saw a car of the same type yesterday. So this time it's a different registration plate. It's the same model, it's the same Lada, I don't know, Lada Samara, whatever it is, but it's a different car. And that is the difference between этот же, or эту же, when we have the accusative case here for feminine, and такую же. And the differences continue with all the other versions of the same. As I say, there will be a separate video for that very soon. So now let's move on to the next use, which is very easy. This is when je is used as a conjunction. However, you don't tend to come across this that often, but I'll show you anyway. So we can use je to connect two clauses for contrast. So it's just a conjunction. The translation in English would be something like while, whilst, or though. It really is very easy, nothing complicated. For example, у нас идут в школу в 7 лет, у них же в 5. Now you know that у нас means we have, especially if it's with у нас есть. But the other time that we use у нас or у меня or у тебя, it means at our place or at my place or around here. Russians also very often use у нас when they mean in Russia, particularly when they're comparing with other countries. And can you see here that у них means that by them. By them means some foreign country. And obviously the speakers know whatever country they're talking about. So у нас means in Russia, у них means somewhere else, some foreign, alien, strange place. So here in Russia, you go to school when you're 7, whilst over there you go when you're 5. That's probably a good translation. And notice that we put je after у них. So it's not the first thing to come in the next clause. Я люблю читать книги. Мой друг же предпочитает смотреть фильмы. Я люблю читать книги. Мой друг же предпочитает смотреть фильмы. Nice and simple. I like reading books, whilst or though my friend prefers watching films. That's it. Nothing else to talk about there. I just have to say that this is not outdated, but it can be a bit formal sometimes, but you will see it. Next, we can find je with interrogatives. So these are all the question words. So how or what. And it's used to strengthen or emphasize them. And sometimes you can find je with a question word and it will mean something like what exactly or how exactly or even then. And you can only really understand this with examples. So imagine this situation. У моей подруги, and then person A goes on and talks about their friend. Something might have happened to their friend and they go and tell them. Person B is basically listening to person A's friend's life story. We'll put it that way. And then person B asks, И что же ты сказала? And what did you say then? So the situation is something like this. Person A is talking to their friend. We'll call it person C for now. Person C has, described something that's happened to them. And after they've told their life story, as I say, person A is meant to react somehow. Person A has reacted, and then when they come to person B to recite everything that's happened, person B then says, well, what did you respond with? What did you say then? Quite a complicated example, I have to say. That's just what kind of came to my mind. Here's another one. Извините, мы опоздали. Извините, мы опоздали. А где же вы были все это время? А где же вы были все это время? Or you might even hear, и где же вы были все это время? Sorry, we're late. Well, where were you all this time then? Or where exactly were you all this time? This is what je conveys. Here's another one. Мы ему долго выбирали новую рубашку. Их было так много, глаза просто разбегались. Мы ему долго выбирали новую рубашку. Их было так много, глаза просто разбегались. Ну, и какую же вы купили? Ну, и какую же вы купили? In English, that would be something like, we spent so much time choosing a new shirt for him. There were just so many of them. Person B replies, well, which one did you buy then? So which one exactly did you buy? Which was the shirt that you bought then after all? In this case, je is also kind of like after all, can you see? And we have a very nice phrase here in Russian. Глаза разбегаются. Разбегаться kind of means to run away or run in different directions. So if you imagine your eyes, if you're looking at something very attractive or there's a large choice, there's a large variety, you're kind of looking at everything and you don't know what to focus on. So your eyes are running all over the place. And Russians use this whenever there's, as I say, there's a lot to choose from. So a nice idiom there for you. Okay, you can also use je, as I said, to mean what exactly, or it even means something like what on earth, or what for goodness sake, what for Christ's sake, things like that. Again, just to emphasize, just to convey a bit of emotion. Что же ты делаешь? Да что же ты делаешь? Sometimes you'll hear as well. What on earth are you doing? Ну как же так? Oh no, how so? Or how has it happened to be this way? Something like that. If someone tells you a horrible or even tragic story, you can reply with "No как же так?" Oh goodness, you're kind of conveying your sympathy really like this, or your shock or surprise as well. And here's another one. Когда же ты наконец меня поймешь? Когда же ты наконец меня поймешь? And this time you're conveying your irritation probably. When will you finally understand me? Like, you're trying to explain something to someone, they consistently fail to understand, or they're just not agreeing with you, and you just convey that you're annoyed through je. And to finish off today's video, there are just a few set phrases and constructions that use je in Russian. They're often hard to translate, but I'll try my best. So, да нет же in Russian is used to, it means something like of course not or no way. And we've done a separate video about да нет же on our channel already, so do check that out. Надо же. And this means something like, oh wow, that's interesting, or that's surprising. So someone tells you about an event or a new fact, or I don't know, a new machine or some new technology has recently been invented and it can do this magical thing. You can react with, oh, надо же. So, you're kind of showing that you're surprised. Wow, have they seriously already invented that? Cool. That kind of idea. Whenever you use же with a time phrase like в первый же день, it means something like right on the very first day. And again, it's used to intensify, to show a bit of emotion. Let's say you bought a new phone, and on the very first day you bought it, it broke. You will use же in Russian to show your anger. В первый же день он сломался. And on the very first day, it broke. And lastly, a very commonly used construction in Russian, всё же. Всё же. Definitely write this one down. It means still in the sense of nevertheless, or also after all. So this is everything that I can think of as far as I know. This will definitely be useful for you. There are bound to be other ones. This is not at all an exhaustive list. However, all of this will be very useful for you. Hopefully you will now be able to incorporate this in your language as well. It's not easy. It requires practice, of course, a lot of exposure to Russian media, Russian texts and videos and so on. So do make sure you're doing that. If you have any other questions, please do not hesitate to ask us in the comments. You can also send us an email. The details for the social media are below. Thank you very much for your attention. Good luck. See you next time. Goodbye.